What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss?
Sir?
The most you ever lost on a coin toss?
I don't know. I couldn't say.
Call it.
Call it?
Yes.
For what?
Just call it.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
You need to call it. I can't call it for you. Well, it wouldn't be fair.
I didn't put nothing up.
Yes, you did. You've been putting it up your whole life. You just didn't know it. You know what date is on this coin?
No.
1958. It's been traveling 22 years to get here. And now it's here. And it's either heads or tails. And you have to say, call it.
Well, look, I need to know what I stand to win.
Everything.
How's that?
You stand to win everything. Call it.
All right. Heads, then.
Well done. Don't put it in your pocket.
Sir?
Don't put it in your pocket. It's just like a quarter.
Where do you want me to put it?
Anywhere not in your pocket. Or it'll get mixed in with the others and become just a coin. Which it is.
You are tuned in to God's Property Radio. Here are your hosts, Sam and Dan.
Welcome back to God's Property Radio. I go by Sam, and this is episode 8 of our coin toss mini-series here, dedicated to helping our brother Kent Hovind and Paul Hansen while they are locked up. What I have for you guys here is a conversation I had maybe about a month ago with Paul, as he was just transferred to Santa Rosa County Jail from Omaha, Nebraska, and it took them 2 months to get Paul down to Santa Rosa from Omaha. And you'll hear at the end of this broadcast, I'm going to be also rebroadcasting a recording of his initial interaction with the court as they were trying to identify him as a person, and he challenged personal jurisdiction during that time. It's a little, my apologies, my little girl is here hanging out with me as I record this. I'm going to try to keep this short and simple here, but basically I talked to Paul. He called me randomly one day as I was working on a construction project indoors. And so what you're going to hear during this conversation is a lot of drills and things banging from upstairs as I was below all of the action going on above me. If you can bear to listen to all of that go on, I had to raise the levels because I also was going off of the computer mic to mic my telephone on that conversation. So it's super lo-fi, but it's a good way to catch up with Paul. And I just want to say I am expecting another call at some point from Paul, and hopefully we'll be able to hash out a lot more things in detail, because we really wanted to go into a lot of detail on the legal situation of what Paul does, and go into things like the marriage certificate and a bunch of other things. But hopefully we get that chance at some point to have another just straight up interview with him on things. And yeah, with that, I'll just say check out freekent.com if you haven't checked it out. We need donations for court costs and for T-shirts. If people want to get a T-shirt made, we're still trying to gather the funds to properly print a substantial amount that will get out to everybody. Like I said, in the end, if we don't print them right away, we'll have them in a short run for the people who have donated toward getting a T-shirt, because we really want to get those made. And no other news at this moment, so without further ado, here's our brother Paul from the Santa Rosa County Jail.
Here we go.
Okay. Well, can you tell me like what's going on? What happened? Because I haven't spoken with you since we've only spoken to you once, but we spoke with you last May, I believe, and we were talking about all sorts of things. And then that was the last time I heard from you. I broadcasted our interview with you on our website for God's Property Radio. So
yeah, I think you told me that my broadcast that I did do back then was well received. I can't remember exactly, but as far as the dealing with the party issue, they're claiming that I committed mail fraud. They're claiming that I don't even know which letters they're referring to. That I mailed some letters in the United States Postal Service to a title company down here, and apparently their attorney received it for the title company, and then the United States is claiming that that's mail fraud because I'm misrepresenting the property as having the church ministry still entertaining legal interest in that property or lawful interest in the property. Now, our stance is that we've never been allowed to have a opportunity in court to hear our ownership of that property. They just automatically deemed it as Canhova's property and took it away from the church ministry, which we believe that the U.S. court has no jurisdiction to do that because they've never been given jurisdiction to administrate property that's not of the United States.
right.
For the entire essence of their claim lacks territorial jurisdiction. It has to go into a court of record, and a jury of 12 of common law would make the determination of all the facts in the law, not a U.S. court. Now, the U.S. court would have jurisdiction if the property began as a U.S. property territorially, but that's not the case here. It began as Creation Science Evangelism property, which is a non-statutory trust, has nothing to do with the U.S. government. Therefore, it lies on the common law side and not on the United States, not within the exclusive legislative authority of the United States, pursuant to Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 17. It's not one of their places, period. Does that make sense?
Yes, especially since you and I and Dan had spoken about all of this stuff, back in May. You helped kind of clear out a lot of issues that we had regarding all this stuff. So yes, I definitely comprehend what you're saying. So
yeah, now they're claiming that I had a duty also to show up. A couple months ago, they subpoenaed me to come down to Pensacola. They were going to pay the way down here, and I got the subpoena delivered to me by a IRS agent delivering it up there. And I wrote them back, and I emailed them back both ways. Pretty sure I wrote them with a notary presentment, but as proof of attempt to contact them. But my premise of not responding to that subpoena was there was no statement on that subpoena that referenced a compelling law to present a duty to me. Now, if I am truly a U.S. citizen, they probably don't have to state a compelling law, but there's no evidence that I am a U.S. citizen, and there's no evidence that I'm operating within the United States territorial boundaries. So they have a duty to inform me where they claim their duty.
yes,
They never did that. So I just wrote them back, and I said, it appears to me like the clerk of the court, because there's no judge that signed the document, only a court clerk, and requiring, and I told him it appears to me like only an invitation. There's no statement of law on here, and also not only is there not a statement of law on there, there's no statement on there if I don't respond to the subpoena, what are the consequences? So absolutely no notices on either end. So I didn't go down, and then about a month later, they surrounded my house with a SWAT team and aimed AK-57s right at my head when I come out of the house, right in front of all my neighbors, and say I'm under arrest. Here I am down here. They arrested me on October 23rd, and I just got down here a couple days, less than a week ago. So I've been in transit for all that time. Now today's date is what? December 13th, I think.
I think it's
14th.
the 15th today, Paul.
Okay. So it almost took them 2 months to bust me down here.
Yeah, I know. I've been trying to follow it, but I haven't had any way of contacting you. Actually, I called your phone, your cell, and your voicemails were just completely filled up.
Yeah. Well, they took my phone away from me, and they took my car keys away from me, and they it's weird. When they arrested me, they is this being recorded? I hope it is. You don't have to say if you don't want to, but they took my keys away from me and my cell phone and my gym bag. And the IRS agent, he says, you should give us your glasses so they don't take them away from you. So he tried to disable me of my glasses too, the client. They're just evil people. And I looked at him, I told him, what are you talking about? I'm going to give you my glasses. That would mean I would be spending the next 2 months with no glasses. That's how corrupt they are. But I had $90 on me, and that money still hasn't got to me yet. So I haven't had a penny to do anything yet.
Yeah.
So if you want to put the word out, have some people send a few dollars down here. I don't need very much money, but it sure be nice to. If they want to ear tag it as a loan, and certainly I have no problem.
Can you just tell me where I can send that to, your address and everything, or do you have that?
I don't know the address, but it's Santa Rosa County Court.
Okay.
And all you do is you just call Santa Rosa and make sure you got the right address, and they'll tell you exactly how to send the money. And you can just get online with a credit card. Boom, I got it.
Okay, great.
My possession within 24 hours. Advise people to just send the money to you, and work with Ernie. I'll give you his number.
Actually, I've been in contact with Ernie for the last month, so.
Have all the money go through him. That way I don't get no more money than I need, because it's possible. Let's just say people did send $1,000 down. I don't want the IRS to seize that money or something, or the courts.
Yeah.
I just want a small amount.
We just created a website, a bunch of people that are helping Kent. In addition to our podcast, we created a website called freekent.com, and we've posted all the interviews that Kent's done and articles that have been written that have been in more of a positive light.
From the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
You're welcome to do the same for me, and then just channel all the money through one person that way. Because once I put $20,000 on some books, and the government kept it all, never got a penny back. Do you want to for me to continue the case?
Absolutely.
So my challenge is going to consist of, first, did the IRS did the warrant that the court issued for the subpoena to come down, did it have force and effective law to have place a duty on me? So then the next challenge will be, of course, they showed up with a SWAT team and arrested me. Did they have jurisdiction to exercise a U.S. warrant on land that is not of the United States? Now, when I say of the United States, is it evidenced as a record of owner, the name of the owner of record? Is it the United States of America, which is required for any land owned by the government to be titled pursuant to the Articles of Confederation? It has to have the United States of America as its owner, listed owner, upper lowercase, exactly in the Articles of Confederation, the way I have it written. If you go to a federal courthouse, look up the owner of that courthouse. If it's truly owned by the government, it'll have it exactly the way the Articles of Confederation has it. It's very telling. IRS buildings are the same way, I found. Okay, so all those issues will be addressed as do they have evidence that I'm a U.S. citizen person, subject, and do they have evidence that it's territorially land that is territorially subject to that warrant, to the subpoena?
Right.
And then the next thing is, they have evidence that I mailed letters, of course. And then do they have evidence that I mailed those letters in to a federal zone? Are they going to prove that I actually had knowledge of putting a letter in a mailbox somewhere and that it was going to pass over a federal zone? They have to, I can't be charged. I can't be associated with the legal nexus to a federal zone unless I knew I was going to have nexus with a federal zone by my act. So all U.S. mail used to pass over a federal zone. It doesn't do that anymore. The U.S. Postal Marshals have told me, or whatever they call them. That's how they get association with drugs being passed through the United States mail, is it has to pass over a U.S. zone at least once. And for example, in my small town, the mail would be shipped 90 miles to pass over a federal zone and then right back to that little small town mailbox. And they did that to get it to pass over a federal zone so that feds would have jurisdiction if they wanted to get involved in something. And then as far as any other aspects of the case, everything's going to be challenged territorially. Do they have territorial jurisdiction to apply for the U.S. courts to go after creation science, evangelism, property, and every aspect of the case? So our time's going to run out here real soon. Yeah, they have 3 counts, 0 to 20 each, and then the failure to appear, which is court's discretion. No minimum or mandatory jail time there. So I'm looking at 60 years in jail for doing a job that I did not even receive any money for from the church. So it's pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
As soon as they call you back, I'll start the story from this point.
Okay.
Pretty fascinating. I got a story I'll tell you. Okay, I'll call you right back here. Yeah, Sam?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, it cut us off, and I didn't even hear it cut us off. So what's the last thing I said?
You had an interesting story, and you were talking about something about the church. The church didn't actually pay you to do anything, and
Okay.
I think that's where you left off.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I was getting some donations to help Kent on the legal side, and those donations were given to other people to do research. Predominantly, I mean, I kept very little of it for myself, and I've been working with Kent since 8 years ago, about 9 years ago. So I've had a lot of hours in it. I consider myself taking any money from in any real way, but I've never received any money to do anything for creation science evangelism as a trustee. So I'm in this position for giving my time freely to the Lord's work and
Amen.
to maintain independence from the United States system. I believe the United States system is very ungodly, and the church should never capitulate and associate with them.
Yeah, can I ask you a question really quickly?
Yeah.
This is something I didn't get to ask you in our interview, and it's been just weighing on me. But I've tried to study stuff on the 501c3 situation, and it seems to me to indicate, and I don't have documentation of this, but that if your church gets your 501c3 tax-exempt status revoked by the government or taken away, then you are forced to pay back taxes, or it's at least an option for you to have to suffer some sort of consequence where it would essentially break you financially.
It possibly could be true, but why would you ever want to go and ask for that life?
I wouldn't, but unfortunately, I'm just saying that because there's other people out there that need to hear the truth about that.
Yeah. You're already not included. You're not exempt. Exempt is that if they would say otherwise, you'd be included. But you'd be subject. So it's not that you're not exempt. It's simply that you're not included in their jurisdiction to begin with. That's the foremost stand. I do attend a church that is not 501c3, and we have absolutely no trouble for 20 years of any issues with people giving it to church and being able to deduct that on their taxes. And I don't encourage anybody to ever associate with a 1040 tax form, because that's a contract with an entity that with the United States. With all we have to know is they killed 50 million babies. We don't have to know a single thing more about them to know that we should just associate ourselves with them.
Yeah. Okay, so you can move on. I'm sorry. Sorry to...
Yeah, let me list... No, that's great. Let me list off the 3 charges. The first charge was they claimed that I attempted to commit mail fraud. Okay. What's interesting was I was in Omaha and they were indicting me, or they were extraditing me down to Florida here. I've never been to Florida before. So they're extraditing me down to Florida, and they're having a hearing up there to extradite me. And public defender, which I always take as a standby counsel during the first couple of days of hearing. And then I take them as public defender as to utilize them to collect, to start the discovery issues if you're incarcerated. But then during the trial, I dismiss them back to standby counsel or constitutional counsel, given the court judicial notice of my right to counsel. Okay, but anyway, that public defender up there didn't know me at all. She read the indictment. She just looked up at me. She was shaking her head like, this isn't mail fraud. It's silly. And she goes, what did you do to piss off the government? And I said, well, Ken Hovind, my co-defendant, he speaks to 2 million people a day, and he often discusses government corruption. And I have a website that's read by 5,000 people a day at times that discusses government corruption in a big way. She goes, well, that's the only reason. That's the only reason, she said, that I could see that they would ever come after you, because this is not mail fraud. They're just harassing, just pure harassment.
Wow.
She said they do that. They do that. They have the funds and the means to do that, and most people don't have a means to defend themselves. So the first charge is mail fraud. And all they're claiming I did is mailed a letter to the title company in Pensacola, Florida, telling them that they're going to give title insurance to anybody purchasing this church property. Now, we think it's prudent that they know that we have a claim. We're going to pursue a claim of ownership of that property. Now, we did not ever file a lien on that property. We filed a claim of lien. There's a difference. We will initiate the claim. We're not going to get back off from that. Okay. Now, how can that be fraud? How can that be deemed as fraud? That we believe that we have a legal interest in that property, that we have a lawful ownership of that property. Indians come back 200 years later and they claim that some property they believe is theirs. You don't see the whole Indian tribe getting arrested for mail fraud or anything. You know, they might be misinformed, they might be misdirected, but the government doesn't go after them for fraud. They say, okay, well, you got a legitimate, logical, at least on your viewpoint, of ownership of that property. So, and we'll respect that. We're not going to throw you in jail, bus you across the country for 60 days in handcuffs, horrible conditions, and the worst sleeping conditions you can imagine in America. Now, the next charge is conspiring to commit mail fraud. So they're claiming that Kent and I conspired. We actually communicated to do this. We worked it out. We planned it out. And it's just silly. All Kent and I ever talked about is, what can we do to get the property in our name and as owners. Not our name, but the trust name. But it was not Kent's property.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
The IRS took it, or the court took it, believing that, and claiming that they had the jurisdiction to say that it was not Creation Science Evangelism Trust property, that it was actually Kent's trust property, and the only thing Creation Science Evangelism was a scam, a shell corporation or a shell trust, which it was not. They don't have jurisdiction to determine that. They just simply do not have jurisdiction. They don't have any more jurisdiction to determine that than the Russian court does. That's supposed to go to common law and placed in front of a jury of 12 of the community, and they make that determination, not no U.S. court. So there we got the first count, the second count, and the third count is they claim that, I don't even know what it is yet, but they claim that there's a fraudulent return address on one of the envelopes, and I have no clue. Now, there was other trustees, not official trustees, but people that helped the trustee from Omaha, Nebraska. 3 people from the area that attended our law classes, and 1 attorney. And I took in the papers that I would like to notify this attorney on. And I showed it to him. I said, should I mail this to the attorney down there? And he said, no, since the court has deemed this property is not of CSEs, and they put a court order out ordering me specifically not to do anything to cloud the title. He says you're better off not doing anything more. It's not worth it, the hassle. I said okay. So I just left the box with these people, and apparently one of those people, possibly that's what the letter they're talking about,
call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
Went ahead and mailed it, and they're claiming that I mailed it or I encouraged them to mail it or whatever, which is silly. There's no evidence of that. They claim my fingerprint, a couple fingerprints on the envelope, but my fingerprints are all over a whole bunch of envelopes in that box. We keep the trust documents in the envelope and the stamps that people are allowed to use for that specific trust in that group. And then, of course, the fourth charge was that I didn't appear at the subpoena for my handwritten. They wanted handwriting exemplars from me, where they basically put you in a room for 8 hours and they tell you to write and print. And then they're trying to, apparently they were going to try to take that to an expert and have him testify that my return address and my addressing address on that envelope was actually done by my hand. So that's what they're trying to collect for evidence. That
Wow.
I actually mailed that letter. Now the reason they're so huffy and puffy about it is because the court about a year ago put a kind of a type of a restraining order on us not to do anything to cloud the title. So our argument is they don't have any jurisdiction to do that at all, because we're not. The document that I'm filing, that I tried to file into the court of the Register of Deeds that they have in Florida, which works through the court clerk. I doubt if that court clerk office is government land. It's just an office that's available to anybody to place a record of land ownership. The government doesn't own that land, I bet. So therefore, I didn't enter into a U.S. Zone to do business, so the U.S. court has no jurisdiction there.
Yeah.
Every aspect of this case, we're going to challenge territorial jurisdiction, and it's going to be quite interesting. Ed Rivera from California was an attorney. He challenged this type of jurisdiction in this federal case. He won every single case, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I wasn't there to verify it, but he said he won every single case, and then he said they disassociated him. They took his bar attorney association card away from him, banned him from practicing law under an attorney's license. So that's how they do it. They are criminals, in my perspective. Some of these guys are criminals, and they put pressure on attorneys to, like Kent Colvin's attorney, I believe, was pressured to throwing Kent's case. We could have won Kent's case for him easily. He didn't do a single thing wrong. Not a single thing wrong did he do in relationship to what he's being sentenced 10 years in jail for. Not one thing. Absolutely evil. His attorney did not defend him. And the taxes that he claimed that he owed, or CSE owed, they were already paid. That attorney did not even stand up to say they've already been paid. So the IRS, they're evil. They got double paid.
Wow.
And they're acting like Kent needs to be in jail more time yet.
Yeah.
Not at all. It's terrible. Well, the judge even announced in court that what Kent did was worse than rape a child. And for some reason, 20 people heard it, but it didn't show up on the court transcript.
Wow.
The courts are, and they don't allow you to bring in a tape recorder. It's evil. It's evil what they do behind these closed doors.
Did you hear about Illinois is just passed a bill through, and I think it's still waiting to be signed, but it's regarding filming police officers. And I guess if you have your phone in Illinois, it's kind of a gray area, but essentially if I were to film a police officer doing any activity or any government official, I could get a class 3 felony.
And that's legitimate, because if I'm in your house, in your jurisdiction, in your house, you can tell me that I cannot have a camera.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Okay, this is what the United States is saying. When you're in our house, on our land, you cannot film us. 99% of those filmings are not on government land. So that restriction does not apply. People need to challenge territorial jurisdiction pursuant to Article 1, Section 8.
Amen.
Of the U.S. Constitution.
Have you ever heard of the Declaratory Act?
No.
Okay, well, I have to get more information on that, but I think you would find that very interesting, and I'm going to email what I have to Laura Beth.
Okay.
Yeah, give me a call back. Okay, I'm here again. Can I ask just a couple questions really quickly? I'd like just to ask a couple questions and then let you just speak again. So,
Well, in a nutshell, say what that one act was. Just in a couple words.
I don't have all the information on that, but tonight we're interviewing a guy who has done research, like documented this stuff. He hasn't gone as far as to, dare I say it, live in the world, not of the world, kind of like the way that you have. But he's contracted, he knows he is, but he's done all the research to prove it, and that this has been going on since the very, very beginning of this country. So, and the Declaratory Act essentially is kind of like the key to all this.
Yeah, well, I don't care about congressional legislative acts because our whole stance is territorial jurisdiction. We're in a U.S. court. The only thing that can be done in this U.S. court is things that were done on U.S. land or things that we fired into the U.S. court. If they could prove that we actually, sent letters into a federal zone, yeah, they got an element of jurisdiction in that one area. But if these letters ended up going to a title company that is not located on government land, nor is the attorney's office on government land, so we did not fire it into a federal zone. Therefore, it needs to go to a court of record, a common law court, which the Constitution references as a court that the jury has full say of the law and the facts. It's a constitutionally recognized court that existed pre-Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Full court.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions. Just because there's a lot of people that have been arrested for claiming to be part of like the sovereign citizen movement, and you're not a citizen, correct?
Citizen means subject. The only thing I believe is wise to be subject to is what I am subject to, and that's God. So foremost, I'm subject to God, and but it's in relationship to the United States. Every relationship to the United States, every single one of them, is by contract. Nobody has a relationship with the United States by birthright. Not the President of the United States, not anybody in Congress, not anybody that lives on their land, not any immigrant that comes up here to try to become a U.S. citizen, not anybody that wants to operate a corporation. Every single relationship is by contract. So anytime the government comes after you, they have to prove contract. Contract and contact are quite often. Contact is like walking onto their land and doing something. So that's a type of a contract that makes you subject to their jurisdiction. So if you're a citizen, citizen comes from the word city. You joined a group of people. So they often they use it in the U.S. Constitution. Citizen is mentioned, I think, 13 times with a capital C. And when it gets to the 14th Amendment, they use a small c. So there's a difference there. There's a distinction. The 14th Amendment is a contract.
Right.
You become a U.S. citizen. The other ones are referring to birthrights, which is association with a different type of United States. I believe is the proper way to interpret it. But anyway, no, you don't want to, and you never want to say that you are a U.S. citizen or not a U.S. citizen. You never want to say that you are anything. You make them prove everything.
Yeah.
If you have a driver's license, you have to be a U.S. citizen. But you never received that driver's license under that disclosure, so you don't have a driver's license. Social security number. Yeah, you got a social security number. It's evidence of being a U.S. citizen. But it wasn't disclosed to you as that, so you've never had a social security number. 1040 tax form is evidence of a contract. But you never were informed that you had an option to sign that 1040 tax form or send it in or self-assess yourself. So it is not a contract. You can go into the court of claims, have all your money returned back to you that you've ever given the United States plus 20% by asserting that you were never giving full disclosure and everything you did was under an organized threat that if I didn't pay, I might be going to jail, or my house would be taken away from me, or whatever. So they just don't want this to happen. They don't want this out because a lot of people do not want to contract with the government anymore because they realize that they're killing 50 million babies. They realize that they're taking half of our money away from us. It's not a good business deal anymore. We want to go back to our birthright, to our independence, and if we want to pay for a movie, we'll pay for it. We're not going to pay the government for every movie they produce. So anyway, every relationship with the government is by contract, and now Ken Hoven's relationship, as far as his duty to, or CSC's duty to collect taxes for what he's in jail for 10 years, is they have to prove contract. Now, his attorney did not address that in court. His attorney did not challenge where's the contract. Matter of fact, after giving his attorney $120,000, after 3 days of the United States putting on a case, the judge turns to Kent's attorney and says, what's your defense? And his attorney stands up in no defense. We could have won his case for him easily. All we had to do is put an IRS agent in the witness stand and say, where's the contract? They didn't do that. There is no contract. He had no duty. He had no relationship. He was not a U.S. citizen. He was not a U.S. person. He wasn't a corporation. He wasn't operating on government land. He wasn't operating under a government license. He wasn't seeking government benefits or services. He had no relationship with them. He was independent. That's why we call it the Declaration of Independence. The great experiment for people to live independent from a king or a government. Great experiment. America is that great experiment, and America is common law. We don't leave our common law standing without contract.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I got to hear your indictment. Like, there was a recording that was put out. It was like 7 minutes where you asked for a pen and paper and everything. Do you know about that? I mean, what happened after? Can you just tell me like what happened from that point? Because you were supposed to have an identity trial or hearing.
Yeah, they brought it back in, and they just they put a witness on the witness stand that I am the person that they wanted to. I never challenged that my name wasn't Paul John Hansen. I just challenged that they had evidence to that I am the person that they're after in Florida. So they just because it doesn't make if you call yourself a number or name or all capital names or nothing. That doesn't make any difference. They have to verify that you are the person that they want down there in Florida. Now that judge, he would not. I told him I wanted to challenge personal jurisdiction. What did I say to or sign to give a U.S. court jurisdiction to drag me to Florida? He wouldn't entertain that in Nebraska. He said that I have to wait to get down here in Florida to do that. Now I did do that in Florida, and the judge ignored me. But I believe that he was a magistrate judge. He wasn't allowed to hear that challenge. So today a public defender is supposed to contact me, and we're going to process papers to challenge personal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction. We're going to try to arrest the warrant because it was initiated possibly without a Fourth Amendment oath or affirmation in support of the warrant, and then possibly it isn't valid because it was initiated on land that is not of the United States. We had an individual that was followed by the IRS for 2 weeks. He'd come out of his house, he'd be sitting in front of his house every day. He'd walk right over and talk to him. He said, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're just doing our job. We're supposed to watch you." He says, "Man, this is like a really waste of tax dollars. You guys, I mean, if you want something, just ask me for it." So he says, "No, we're just doing our job." So they followed him for 2 weeks. And then one day he went to the post office, and he walked on the post office land, and they jumped out of his car immediately and arrested him. That's territorial jurisdiction. That post office is owned by the United States, and therefore, as soon as he stepped on land of the United States, pursuant to Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, they have jurisdiction.
Wow.
Fascinating story.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, court buildings, post offices, they're all built by the same people, yep. So can I just, this is kind of, I don't want this to, like, get too off topic, but I have to ask this because Peter J. Riley and a bunch of people that are, having to do with, not in a positive light, painting Hovind through journalism and such, they keep referencing Irwin Schiff, and I know that you and I and Dan had talked back in May, and you said I remember in the conversation you specifically saying that some guy listened to Irwin Schiff and he shouldn't have done that or something. So can you just again distance Hovind and yourself, tell us why you wouldn't want to listen to Irwin Schiff.
Irwin Schiff, the guy that taught me the most about IRS, he went to law school. He refused to get a bar license. His name was Ed Shell. He died recently. He might have been killed by the government. It's just weird. Seemed to be perfectly okay, and he just found him dead. So they might have put some special drugs in him and caused his heart to fail. But anyway, about 6 months ago, he was found dead at home. And just complete shock to us, which seems to happen to some really good law people that are costing the government.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
You start costing the government, $10, $20, $50 million, they have you killed for $1,000, So anyway, he did investigate Irwin Schiff's material. He found out Irwin Schiff that had a broker's license as an insurance. Therefore, he had a contract with the government. That contract, they duty to him to file 1040s and so forth. He didn't do it. He went, my friend Ed Shell went to one of his meetings. He stood up in his meeting. He said, Irwin Schiff, you're going to go to jail. You got a broker's license. You cannot win your case. Irwin says, oh, no, I ain't taking it. The guy says, nope, you're going to lose your case. So Irwin would not admit he had a legal nexus with the government to pay federal tax. Of course, my story might not be true. If he did, he was not a broker, had a broker's license, but that's what I was told by the guy that I believe was on top of his case. But Irwin Schiff's stance is completely different than Kerwin's because, than Ken Hoven's, because Irwin did appear to have a legal nexus and contract with the government. Ken Hoven's Creation Science Evangelism is not evidence of having a legal contract of any type with the government. Matter of fact, they went through expansive efforts to try to make sure they had no contracts by asking the government, do we have any contracts? I don't want to do any contracts. I don't want any services or benefits from you. I want to live independent. I want to be an example for America, to be independent of the United States system. The United States system is supposed to be a military a tool for the people, and I don't want anything to do with them other than they just do their purpose constitutionally to work as a confederacy to defend our borders militarily. So yeah, I wouldn't follow Irwin Schiff's material at all. He had no basis to win his case. Had no chance of winning his case.
Yeah. Let's do this again. Hopefully this week. Let's talk again. I'll put a little bit more money on my account here and
write me a letter and write down what we want to talk about and when you want me to call me, and I'll go through there.
Absolutely, Paul. We're praying for you. We support you 100%.
Okay. Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you. Bye.
Bye. And I'm back for a brief minute. I just wanted to make sure we're all on a level playing field here and everybody understands what's going on with Paul and his side of the story, because this isn't just about Kent, it's about Paul. And I'm just going to say, if you haven't heard our interview on godspropertyradio.com with Paul, it's called Placing the Burden of Proof. It's episode number 8. You can go download it over there, or you can find it on our Podomatic website. I would strongly encourage you to do that so you can get a background on Paul and his involvement with Kent and CSE, et cetera, et cetera. But really quickly, I just wanted to rebroadcast a 7-minute dialogue that happened in the first court appearance that Paul had after he had been held at gunpoint by IRS agents or CIA agents. I'm not really sure what kind of agents they were, but they were government agents, and they came and got him at gunpoint from his home. And this is basically a judge talking for the first 3 minutes and then Paul interacting with that judge for the next 4 minutes. And you can come to your own conclusion on things, but as you've probably come to realize with the legal system and the meanings of words, et cetera, as we've been trying to cover those things, and I'm sure a lot of people have looked these things up that are aware of the New World Order and all these things, you can grasp that Paul has more of an understanding of things than most people. So just check this out, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
John Hansen, carrying the number of 814 MJ 277 in the District of Nebraska. and the number of 314 CR91 in the Northern District of Florida. Counsel for the United States, enter appearance for the record, please.
Frederick Franklin, Assistant U.S. Attorney.
Defendant is advised that he's charged in an indictment in the Northern District of Florida in count 1 with a violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 1349. That's a conspiracy to commit mail fraud. Maximum penalty in the event of conviction on that count is up to 20 years imprisonment or a $250,000 fine or both such fine or imprisonment. Any term of imprisonment to be followed by a term of supervised release of up to 3 years and a $100 special assessment. You're additionally charged in counts 2 and 4 with mail fraud. The maximum penalty in the event of conviction on that count in violation of Title 18 United States Code, Section 1341. The maximum penalty in the event of conviction on that count, on each of those counts, up to 20 years imprisonment or a $250,000 fine or both such fine or imprisonment. Any term of imprisonment to be followed by a term of supervised release of up to 3 years and a $100 special assessment. Counts 5 and 6, you're charged with violations of Title 18 United States Code, Section 4013. That's criminal contempt. In the event of conviction on that, you're subject to a fine and imprisonment at the discretion of the court. You're advised you're not required to make any statement. Any statements that you do make could be used against you in these proceedings or elsewhere. You have the right to be represented by an attorney at all stages of proceedings. And if you have an attorney or wish to make contact with an attorney of your own choosing, you'll be given that opportunity. If you are a person without enough money to hire your own attorney, then I'll appoint the federal public defender seated next to you as your counsel upon a showing as to your financial condition. The next proceeding before me will be that of an identity hearing, a hearing to determine whether you are the Paul John Hansen that's named in the warrant from the Northern District of Florida. If that's shown, or if you waive such a hearing, then you'll be held for further proceedings in the Northern District of Florida. It is only in the Northern District of Florida where you can stand trial on a plea of not guilty. However, pursuant to Rule 20 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, you can have the case transferred from the Northern District of Florida to the District of Nebraska, but solely for the purposes of entry of a plea of guilty and sentencing upon the consent of the United States attorneys for both the Northern District of Florida and the District of Nebraska. And before we leave here today, the terms and conditions of release will be discussed. Now, first of all, do you have an attorney or wish to make contact with an attorney of your own choosing, or do you request that I appoint counsel seated next to you?
I'd like to have pen and paper and a short leave of court, please.
For what purpose?
To make notes and to respond in writing to the court, because I cannot.
You can respond. You can respond orally here in court. We're on the record. It's taped.
I need a pen and paper to keep records, sir.
Do you have pad and pencil for him?
I don't have a pad, Your Honor. I have a pen.
There you go. There you go. Give him a pad and pencil.
Thank you.
Now, sir, do you have an attorney, or do you wish me to appoint the attorney seated next to you?
I don't want to say any words that would convey me yielding to any personal jurisdiction. I'd like to challenge, I as a man would like to challenge personal jurisdiction of every element of the activity that has brought me here.
I will assume that as a request for an identity hearing in that respect. Therefore, this matter will be set for an identity hearing. We'll set it for next week.
No, sir, you misunderstood me.
What?
I wish to challenge, I'd like to have the opposing party produce the evidence that I am here pursuant to law and territorial jurisdiction. I have been taking off of a property that is not evidenced as a possession or territory of the United States. Therefore, the court lacks subject matter jurisdiction.
Well, the jurisdiction that I have is to determine whether you are the Paul John Hansen that's named in this warrant, and we're going to have a hearing to determine whether you're Paul John Hansen, and if you are, then you'll be held for further proceedings in the Northern District of Florida. In order for you to prepare for that, and for the government to prepare for that, I'll set a hearing next week in this matter for such an identity hearing.
I have no difficulty identifying myself, sir.
Well, are you admitting to me that you are the Paul John Hansen that's named in the warrant from the Northern District of Florida?
My understanding of the definition of defendant is a statutory person. I am not a statutory person. I am not a 14th Amendment citizen. I am independent of the United States system. But yes, they do call me Paul John Hansen. My parents have called me Paul John Hansen ever since I was born.
Well, the question I ask of you, and of course you can have counsel to determine whether you wish to respond to that, is whether you are the Paul John Hansen that's named in this warrant from the Northern District of Florida.
I do not know who they named. I do know that I am Paul John Hansen sitting here right now.
All right. Well, in order to ensure that Rule 5 is met in its entirety, this matter will be set for a hearing next week on October the 29th at 10:30 a.m. If the government needs more time than that in order to have the appropriate witnesses here, they may make such a request to the court.
I wish to challenge personal jurisdiction at this time, now.
And you're noted for the record. At this particular time, what's the position of the government with regard to release?
The United States is seeking detention based on a risk of non-appearance and a risk of danger.
All right.
Sir, I didn't understand. You said noted for the record, but is that request denied?
I don't make a determination of personal jurisdiction at this time. That's why we're having a hearing on the 29th at 10:30, and that'll be a combined identity hearing and a detention hearing in that respect.
Okay, thank you. That does help me.
In the meantime, you'll be remanded to the custody of the marshal. You'll be held in detention pending a hearing at 10:30 a.m. on Wednesday, October the 29th. Anything further from the government?
No, sir.
All right, we're in recess. You're excused.
All right, I'm back again. And now that you've heard a conversation that I had with Paul, then heard his original interaction with the courts, I think it's become very obvious that Paul's not going down quietly. And I think that just him challenging personal jurisdiction and having some individual come in and have to say that he was Paul Hansen or whatever, he was that corporate entity, or that they knew who he was, and that they got personal jurisdiction and an identity hearing off of a third party. So that right there is interesting, I think, to note. Yeah, see, even my daughter's a little bit upset right now, so we're all a little upset. I think we should all be writing Congress and, doing everything we can. And I should be having another conversation with Paul in the weeks to come, and hopefully we can get a little bit more into detail on some things. Again, that was a conversation that was just totally on the fly and didn't have anything planned, and just was very happy to hear his voice and give him the opportunity to speak a little bit. And as you can hear, it's about time for me to get out of here now. Got a little fusser here, so I'm going to attend to that. And thank you for tuning in to God's Property Radio, episode 8 of the Coin Toss series. Many, many more to come. We shall not disappoint, and I just want to thank everybody who keeps getting involved. Our web of support just keeps growing and growing and growing, and thank you so very much for reaching out to us. And anything that anyone can do, just hit us up. We'll find a place for you to fit in. Most importantly, keep these brothers in your prayers. So be on the lookout for many more broadcasts here from the Coin Toss series. I'm very excited about some of the guests that we're going to be getting on and some of the conversations and topics we're going to be getting into. With that being said, until next time, don't buy into what the world is selling.
I pledge allegiance to the card of the United States of Credit. One nation under debt, with bankruptcies, late fees, and high interest,